I'm grateful that you made time to join us this morning. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Kukumlemle, also streaming live on DSTV and GoTV and around the world via myjoyonline.com. The details now. Flag bearer of the opposition NDC, John Dramani Mahama, says his government will not grant mining concessions in forest reserves if he wins the 2024 elections. He believes this will help protect the country's forest reserves. Mr. Mahama opines that benefits received from mining in the forest outweigh the financial gains from the extraction of gold deposits. He's been addressing residents of Dry Kwanta as part of his Build in Ghana tour.
Nana eka kwaya asem na eya reho if you say ene wo hwe ye kwaye ni bebre a se na na esitie ama uhu a wa nkasa obesu amagana na eno na ama ye friend saying twi kasam ye climate sesa abra wo se ensuo ba emma abra ni se ensuo to na to if you say ya say your environment ni nyina Oko hu kwaye na either say ye yi sika kokko ho nti ye twa kwaye na gu na NDC wo hwe ye manifesto mu a ye say kwaye na aka no ye bebo ho ban ye ma obia concession say onko kwaye mu nkotwa kwaye ngu enua na esi ho no e wo mfaso e chen sika kokko na wuyi efri ho no na sika kokko no wuyi free ho eno ano no oton wi a wadi sika no na nduane bi ye nananom kansoa sa emre no na sa nduane si ho edua esi ho 300 years na waba o de chenso atwa egu se wo hwehwe sika kokko nti eba sa forest reserves ni nyina aka no ye bebo ho ban se na be ya ye betimi ede ama ye ma ni ye nananom so anka ye nananom etwitwa akwaye ni na gu ya anka ye beba beto Omo de ma yese ne be ya yeso ye bebo ho ban ne de ama ye ma ne ye nananom enti sa na be ya no.
Mr. Mahama there opining that protecting forest reserves far outweighs what we gain by mining in them. Let's delve a bit more into that. And we've been joined by Dr. Abdul Wadud Moomin. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Energy and Natural Resources School of Mines. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm grateful for your time. So conversations about mining in forest reserves. We know that for many of the stories that have been highlighted, the people who are mining in forest reserves have not necessarily been granted licenses. Many of these have been done by people involved in illegal mining, i.e. they go under the cover of darkness, they illegally enter these forest reserves and they destroy the forest cover, and we know what the implications are. What are your general impressions about Mr. Mahama's focus? Is it really an issue of fighting illegal mining, or it is an issue of granting concession or leases for companies to enter forest reserves?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers and listeners, and good morning to all meaningful Ghanaians. My first comment is that I give thumbs up to His Excellency the former President John Mahama. If he dreams to stop illegal mining and even granting concessions in forested areas, that's an excellent idea. In any case, where this comment is emanating from is the LI that has actually been passed recently which was sponsored by the EPA to allow exploration and mining activities in certain reserves. And that has been actually the problem that has generated this. Look, Ghana has been a signatory to the UNCCD and the United Nations SDGs 2030, particularly the SDG 15.3, which seeks to protect life on land. And this includes forest areas and all wildlife reserves, irrespective, and the other SDG, which is SDG 12, which talks about responsible consumption and production. We do not have to grant mining concessions in forested and protected areas. Nature reserves must be well protected, in any case, for our own good and ecosystem services, which every life and every non-living thing also even benefit from. We need to take a clue from what's happening in Colombia. In Colombia, largely, there are a whole lot of illegal mining activities in the forested areas. We also need to take a clue from the rest of the Southern America. In Southern American areas like Peru, Brazil, Chile, where you have the Amazonian forest,
right,
which is one of the largest forests in the world, and there is a lot of mining activity taking place in these areas. What are the repercussions? What are the water pollution, climate impacts on agriculture, climate impact on the mining activities themselves? And I do not think that currently, even in the laws of Ghana, the mining law of Ghana and the minerals and mining policy of Ghana, there is any section or portion that allows the grant of concession in forest areas.
Right.
It's unacceptable.
Right.
For that reason, if the former president thinks that and he suggests that, I agree with him perfectly.
Dr. Moomin, the CEO of the Minerals Commission, Mr. Martin AEC, thinks otherwise. Now, here's his argument. We don't allow mining in forest reserves. Yet, like I mentioned earlier, we know for a fact that people enter mining reserves illegally under the cover of darkness. We know the Forestry Commission is not resourced enough to go after these people. His argument is that why not allow responsible mining in these reserves where there's a bit more regulation? We decide or determine which parts of the forest reserves must be mined, obviously paying attention to the fact that we need to protect the forest reserve as well. So his argument is we don't have to sit idle. We don't have to let the forest sit idle because people are mining in it anyway. Why not allow people to go in there to do the responsible thing?
I cannot disagree with Mr. Martin AEC. He's a very respectable person. He's well experienced. He's worked in Minerals Commission for many years before rising to the position of the CEO. And I also know we may have to investigate thoroughly into whatever proposals he has set in this regard. But as an intellectual, my opinion is that if we do so, look, Ghana is a signatory to the UNCCF. Ghana is a signatory to the UNCCD Convention. Ghana is also a signatory to the SDGs. And if we allow mining in forest areas, we may be contravening all these global policies and conventions that we have agreed, which have all frowned upon resource extraction in reserve and nature biodiversity areas. For that reason, it is unacceptable and it is illegal to do that. If we also do that, look, let's think through into the future. Are we just interested in resource extraction today by jeopardizing the opportunities of future generations, let's say even the next 5 years? Just consider the significance of forest areas in carbon sequestration and also the protection of water bodies, both underground and surface water bodies. Also consider the other significance of forests to allow resource extraction. Now, if you go back to the archives of the Ghana Environmental State, a report by the EPA in 2021-2022, it tells you the amount of forest areas that have been degraded and how much are we recovering, how much are we rehabilitating to balance the net carbon concentrations in the atmosphere. That is actually contributing to this. Let's also do the cost-benefit analysis. So we may have to engage with the Minerals Commission at some point in time to do the cost-benefit analysis. But in any case, I do not see anywhere around the world where mining is legally accepted in forested areas. It is highly unacceptable, and the repercussions are more alarming and cannot be actually traded for resource extraction, whether gold, whether lithium, any other mineral.
Dr. Moomin, but it's happening anyway in places, in forest reserves like Apamprama, Subin Shelter Belt, the Oda River Forest in the Ashanti region. We know there's mining going on. So whether or not people are granted access to legally, according to the CEO of the Minerals Commission, responsibly mine in these areas, there's still mining going on. So we are still losing anyway. So what's the point here, really? That's why my initial question was, should the focus be about whether we are going to allow people to responsibly mine in these areas, or our focus should be on how to realistically deal with those who are entering the forest reserves anyway illegally and still causing the harm that we don't want to be caused?
I have mentioned on this studio before that illegal mining should be treated as the way we treat narcotic drugs. We all know that narcotic drugs trading are going on, and we have always been on the hunt for such people who perpetrate it. It's the same. Let's apply the same logic here. Illegal mining happening in forest areas. As at now, it is illegal. We all accept that it's illegal, and illegal criminals are always ahead of security apparatus. So yes, and I know the Minerals Commission even has it set up its own monitoring rooms, trying to fetch out all these areas that illegal miners are in the forest areas. And for that reason, that alone defeats any thinking that once it is already happening, let's go ahead and legalize it. Look, it is not something that we can actually blink an eye to accept. But if you go further to think through what Mr. Aisi has suggested, if it means that we have actually given up in stemming out illegal mining in forested areas, if we want to legalize it, whatever it is. But I still stand on the point that, look, we have to do the cost-benefit analysis before we proceed. The fact that we are fighting and we are not winning the fight, we are not able to stem them out, what amount of benefit is that going to entail if we illegalize it? Look, I remember 3 weeks ago, I made a proposal to the U.S. Embassy at a tech camp we held in Takoradi that one of the ways I think that we could help to forestall illegal mining, not necessarily in forested areas, is to introduce and educate miners, particularly the small-scale miners, on carbon trading. If we introduce the idea of carbon trading as a complementary livelihood activity, not an alternative livelihood activity to them, we may be able to succeed in rehabilitating most of the degraded land, including the forest areas. What do I mean? If we get the illegal miners, we know them a lot of times, where they are and where they work and who they work for. If we could strike a balance, educate them on the benefits that come after engaging in carbon trading, that is engaging in agroforestry. If miners could engage in agroforestry, wherever they mine, and the next concession they are moving to, an illegal concession, of course, they are moving to, if they could rehabilitate the previous concession that they have worked and convert it to an agroforestry, and then we'll link them up to the carbon trading companies overseas, and which is actually organized by the EPA. And also, just shortly, I have seen that the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has had some contact with the carbon trading companies. If we can have all these engagements, then fine. So it takes us back to the early 1800s, when the Europeans started to extract log, timber from forest for their manufacturing companies, for the production of ship and boats, for roofing and for textiles. Then they came to the logical conclusion that, look, our rate of extraction of forest products was more than our recovery of forest lands. So what do? We need to balance it. So to balance it means that we need to assess the carrying capacity of each of these forests, assess the cost-benefit analysis of that, and our rate of afforestation should be more than the rate at which we harvest forest lands for timber, for log, and for whatever other purpose. If we, given our current circumstances, can implement this and let illegal miners accept and come to know the fact that, look, there is another avenue to even earn more dollars than just the mineral commodity. And anytime commodity prices are low, they could actually be seriously engaged in harvesting carbon points and credits to earn more dollars.
Right.
and still stay afloat on business. I think that is fine. But even the fact that we have laws that ban them from doing what they do currently, are we able to manage them? Are we able to control them? Let's think through this. If we can also implement or educate and implement the carbon trading as a complementary activity to the illegal mining, fine. We would be raising more forests than we will be depleting forests.
Right, Doc.
Mining.
We would have to leave it here. Sorry, can you just wrap up on that point?
Yeah, so the miners themselves eventually will engage in raising more forest lands than they deplete forest lands. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Dr. Abdul Wadud Mumin is a senior lecturer at the University of Energy and Natural Resources Schools of Mines. And we've been having a conversation about mining because former President John Dramani Mahama says his government, if he wins the 2024 elections, will not grant concessions in forest reserves. Let's